The truth is, right now, it sort of feels like the zombie genre is caught in a pretty strange place. It's bigger than ever, more polished than ever, and yet somehow a little predictable. You know what you're getting before you even press start. Survival mechanics, crafting systems, open worlds filled with the infected, waiting to be cleared out. And in the middle of all that, there's a franchise that never really tried to fit into that mold in the first place. So, speaking of the devil, Dead Island has actually always done things differently. Not by being the scariest or the deepest, but actually by leaning into something far more chaotic and strangely addictive. It's a kind of game where the setting invites you to relax, while the gameplay constantly reminds you that you absolutely cannot. That's exactly why the idea of Dead Island 3 matters more than it might seem at first. See, on paper, it's just another sequel in a long-awaited zombie series, but in reality, it represents something much bigger. A second chance for a franchise that already fought its way back from the edge once before. And to understand where Dead Island 3 could go, you have to look at what the series has been through. The original Dead Island launched with a tone that felt almost unique at the time. It dropped players in a tropical paradise and then tore that illusion apart with brutal, up-close combat. It wasn't about military precision or cinematic storytelling, it was about impact. Every swing of a weapon felt heavy, every encounter messy and predictable. You weren't a hero cleaning up the world, you were just trying to survive it. See, Dead Island 2 took that foundation and, after years of development issues, finally delivered something that leaned even harder into its identity. It embraced the absurdity, the humor, and the over-the-top violence. It knew exactly what it was, a sandbox of destruction wrapped in a stylized version of Los Angeles, and surprisingly, that clarity worked. The game didn't try to be different or everything, it focused on what it did best and refined it. Now, Dead Island 3 enters the picture in a completely different position. Unlike its predecessor, it isn't being dragged through years of uncertainty and shifting direction. In fact, reports from developers Deep Silver and Dumpster Studios suggest that this time, the project started with a clear vision. The team that finished Dead Island 2 had already moved forward, and instead of scrambling to figure things out, they're building on something that already works, which that alone changes the tone of the entire conversation. What makes this even more interesting is the scale of commitment behind the game right now. See, this isn't a small follow-up or a side experiment per se. The studio has reportedly allocated a significant portion of its team to the project, treating Dead Island 3 as a full-scale long-term development. Early production phases are already shaping core systems, world design, and narrative direction, which suggests that the foundation is being taken seriously from the start. And if the current timeline holds, we're likely looking at a release somewhere around 2028, which gives the developers something the series has rarely had: time. This time could make all the difference, especially when it comes to addressing one of the biggest criticisms the series has always faced. See, while Dead Island has always excelled at moment-to-moment gameplay, it has often struggled with depth. The loop is simple: explore, fight, loot, repeat. It works and it's fun, but it doesn't always evolve in meaningful ways. Dead Island 3 has the opportunity to change that, not by abandoning its core identity, but by expanding it. There's a growing expectations, actually, that the next game will push beyond the basic formula and introduce systems that feel more interconnected. Like, imagine a world where your actions don't just clear areas, but actually shape them, where survivors react to what you do, where resources become part of the larger decisions instead of just items to collect. The combat could remain as visceral as ever, but layered with more consequences and strategy. See, the series doesn't need to become overly complex, but it needs to feel like it's growing. And there's also the question of setting, which has always been one of Dead Island's strongest tools. The shift from a tropical island to a stylized Los Angeles already proved that the location can completely redefine the experience. Now, speculation around Dead Island 3 suggests that the developers might be looking even further, possibly exploring regions outside the United States. Subtle hints have pointed toward places like Australia or parts of Europe, which would immediately change the tone of the game. See, a different setting isn't just about visuals, it affects everything. Architecture, culture, enemy design, even the way the story unfolds. A colder, harsher environment could push the game toward a more survival-focused experience while still maintaining the chaos that defines the series. On the other hand, a completely new urban setting could double down on density, creating tighter, more intense encounters. Either way, the choice of location will likely play a huge role in how Dead Island 3 feels compared to its predecessors. And yes, of course, tone is another area where the game could evolve in interesting ways. Dead Island 2 leaned heavily into humor and stylization. To humor, creating a world that felt almost exaggerated at times. That approach worked, but it also left room for something different. Dead Island 3 could choose to balance that one, keeping the personality while introducing moments that feel more grounded or emotionally engaging. It doesn't need to become a serious, story-driven drama, but adding weight to certain moments could elevate the overall experience. From a technical standpoint, the timing of this game is also worth paying attention to. By the time Dead Island 3 releases, it'll likely be built entirely for modern hardware, without the need to support older systems. That opens the door for larger environments, more detailed physics and smarter AI systems. The Flay system per se introduced in Dead Space 2 was already a standout feature, offering one of the most detailed damage models in any game. Expanding that system further could, make combat feel even more dynamic and reactive. What's important to understand is that Dead Island 3 doesn't need to compete directly with the other zombie games. It doesn't need to outdo them in realism or storytelling. Its strength has always been in its identity. It exists in a space that blends arcade-style action with immersive detail, creating something that feels both accessible and intense at the same time. And that's where the real potential lies. Dead Island 2 proved that the franchise could come back and still resonate with players. Dead Island 3 now has the chance to build on that success and push it even further. And yeah, there's also something to be said about the timing of its release. In a broader sense, by the late 2020s, the gaming landscape would likely look different, very different. New technologies, expectations, new standards will shape what players want from their experiences. Dead Island 3 has the advantage of being able to observe the evolution and adapt to it. It doesn't have to rush to meet current trends. It can take its time and arrive when it's ready to stand out. Now, at the end of the day, of course, Dead Island 3 isn't just another sequel waiting in line. It's a continuation of a franchise that has already proven its resilience. The foundation's there, the identity is clear. The only question is how far the developers are willing to take it. If they play it safe, of course, it'll likely still be fun. But if they take the opportunity to evolve, to deepen the systems, expand the world, and refine the tone, well, Dead Island 3 could become something much more significant. It could be the game that finally brings together everything the series has been building towards. And in a genre that often feels crowded and quite repetitive, the kind of evolution is exactly what stands out.